I've just always been that person that looks way down the road and thinks, okay, what can I do? You know, I live in, like I said, a religious Jewish community, and there's a lot of talk about the afterlife and God and belief and atheism and this and that. And you know, religion aside, my belief system is that if you can leave the world a better place than when you arrived, you have done your part for humanity.
Whatever you heard of me ain't worthy to me. I'm just too cutthroat, verbal surgery. How you claim to know thyself when your shelf's too high? I keep mines at eye level. What you trying to hide? Peace, 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 beautiful family. This is Dr. Walter Hidalgo, and this is the Know Thyself podcast. The Know Thyself podcast utilizes the metaphor of the shelf in order to extrapolate the self. And the way we do that is we invite guests to come in and share something about themselves. And before I introduce my guests, I just want to give a few shout out to a few sponsors and people that are rocking with us. Shout out to my brother Steve and his 2020 collections. Definitely check out his stuff. If you're looking for coaching, definitely check out the Elite Method, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. And I also finally started my website. It's called knowthyself.tv. And there is another medium upon which you can find me coaching too and connect with Elite Method. But if you're looking for workshops, I do a lot of workshops with teens and young adults around bullying, around social media, around the theology of hip hop. I have an expansive kind of resume, if you will, in that regard. But I do workshops. So if you're looking for a speaker, give me a shout out. Just go to knowthyself.tv. As we always do, also, I want to give a big shout out to a group of individuals. And today I want to give a big shout out to all my mothers. All my coaches. Anyone that works with young people in every sense of the way, whether you're a nanny, whether you're homeschooling, social services, juvenile detention centers, shout out to everyone that's helping to cultivate our young people in one way or another, because today I have somebody that I respect, that I admire, that I'm so proud of, my sister Rachel Dubé.
Oh, that's really sweet, Walter. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and I'm grateful that you're here. That we are here.
Yeah.
In your home, your space, your space where you do the mom, do the business, and get the work done. Just superwoman.
That's the goal.
That's
Every
right.
day.
That's right. I know. I always like to contextualize things. So if we were to jump into a time machine to go back to a younger Rachel,
Wow.
what would we see? What would we hear, etc.? Because you are originally from
Brooklyn.
Shout out to Brooklyn. We're here.
Major shout out to Brooklyn.
So talk to us about a
Canarsie.
younger. Okay. Talk to us about that.
So yeah, my first 11 years of life, I lived in Brooklyn.
Wow.
Very, very different environment than where I am now in Englewood, New Jersey. But integral part of my years, and I will always be a Brooklyn girl. Even if I didn't want to be, it doesn't matter, because people remind me all the time by my accent that I'm from there. So it is what it is, and I have no qualms about it.
Mm-hmm. And talk to us about the family. Like, did you?
Yeah, I have a sister who's 2 years younger than me, and a brother who's 13 years younger than me.
Wow.
Yes. He came a little bit later on in life, and I adore him more than anything in the world. Was always a great kid, and turned out to be a great man as well. And he actually, interestingly enough, just sold his company. Advertising technology company.
Wow.
And yeah, he did exceptionally well, and we're really proud of him.
Wow.
Yeah, we always knew he was capable, and we always knew he was likely to do it, but the fact that he actually did it, we're all still marveling at his success and very, very proud of him.
Yeah.
But it's just a little weird, because he's my little brother. Like, I used to take care of him as a baby, and now he's like a successful man, and with his own babies. It's a little bit of a trip for me, but everything turned out beautifully. And my parents are very proud. My sister and I are very proud. So that was pretty exciting for our family to see that come to a head in such a good way.
Yeah.
And my sister actually lives close by here in Englewood, so we're very close. She has 2 daughters, and we see each other quite a bit. But my parents live in Arizona. They moved there when I went off to college. I went to college in Arizona.
Really?
Yes.
Shout out to Arizona. I love Arizona.
Yeah, it's.
God, I love it.
So I went to school in Tucson, which is southern Arizona.
Yeah, my sister used to live in Tucson.
So great place to go to college,
Sure.
great university, so much fun. But in fact, my parents, when they moved to Arizona, they moved to a place called Sedona.
Yes.
So that's in
I've heard
northern
that.
Arizona, and that is like a very big touristy, beautiful vistas and mountains. I mean, you see it in all the old westerns and in a lot of movies and postcards. So my parents lived there for 7 years, and while I was in college, so it was actually fun because my friends and I would be able to go there on weekends and visit them. In Sedona.
Nice.
And at a certain point, though, interestingly, my brother was going off to high school. My parents decided that from a religious perspective, it was no longer really working for them because
Really? Yeah.
my parents are Jewish and fairly observant, Orthodox, and they felt, and there was a very limited Jewish community in Sedona. And as my brother was getting a little older and they wanted him to be able to be around other girls to date, and there were no choices there, they felt that it would be better for him to move to a community where he had a little bit more support and more friends to choose from and things like that. So they moved to Scottsdale, which turned out to be amazing because Scottsdale is beyond fabulous.
Yeah, I
what
love
an
Scottsdale.
amazing place to live. So my brother went to high school in Scottsdale, and from there he took off and did amazingly. But it was a very, very smart move on my parents' part because Sedona, while beyond beautiful, it can be isolating for a teenager to grow up there.
Sure.
The median age is like retired.
Yeah, exactly. Facts. That's right.
There's not so many young kids
That's
there.
right. That's right.
At a certain point, they were like, we got to do what's best for the kids. So
That's right. That's
they
right.
moved, and he had a much bigger social life. And in high school, social life is critical.
Sure.
So, but my parents are still in Scottsdale and still loving life. They have a great quality of life over there. My dad hikes every day. He plays tennis every day. He's 77.
Beautiful.
78 maybe.
Wow.
He looks like a 50-year-old. He's in such good shape because
Wow.
he's been doing this for decades.
Forever.
Every day. I mean, when they say stay in shape, you'll live long and look
It's
good.
a fact.
It's
Oh
a
my
fact.
God.
I mean, my
Yes.
dad proves it, and then
Yes.
some.
Yeah.
Even my mom looks amazing too. Just
Yeah.
that lifestyle. And so, what's interesting though is that my sister and I got married both in 2021, 2020, 21, I don't remember. But the point is that my brother's bar mitzvah was the same year. So my parents did a bar mitzvah and 2 weddings all in the same year, and also moved from New Jersey to Sedona.
Wow.
So there was a lot of things happening.
Sure.
In that time. I'm sorry, not 2020, 2001.
Right. Yeah.
20 years ago. So that was a very interesting time here in our lives where a lot of changes were being made, but everything worked out great. And I ended up, after college, moving to Atlanta, Georgia for a bit. And then,
Shout out to ATL.
Yeah.
Different.
Yes, and I met my best friend there, and to this day, she's still my best friend. And it was great just experiencing another part of the world aside from the whole New York, New Jersey thing.
Yeah.
I had the Arizona thing, then I had the Atlanta thing, and then it was like, it's time for me to start looking potentially to get married. I was in my mid-20s, I wanted to date, not necessarily get married, but so I moved back to New York.
So you did the 360, just
Did the
back.
360. And I knew, even when I was in Arizona, even when I was in Atlanta, I knew that ultimately I was going to end up back here. It's just, it's who I am. Sometimes you just can't escape who you are. And I don't regret it. I mean, it's been a good decision. I have a lot of friends and family here. I mean, I miss my parents, but we do go out of our way to see them.
Sure.
It's not really a problem. But my sister's here, and my brother is living in Dumbo, so he's not far either. So it's all worked out, and I met my amazing husband, who you know.
Yes. Shout out to Mike. That's the.
Shout out to Mike.
Yeah.
And that's been a life-changing experience, to say the least. I always knew that I was destined to marry a character because I'm only intrigued by people that are different.
Sure. Before we go into character building or development,
Yeah, or just having
exactly.
character having.
I want to talk about what did you study? What was your background?
So this is actually an interesting story. So since I was little, I've always been fascinated by film and media and television. And,
Okay.
that's what I studied in college. I studied filmmaking, media arts, and I was absolutely certain that I wanted to go into the movie making business after college. And I did. When I moved back to New York, I did go into the movie making business. I worked at New Line Cinema. I worked at Miramax.
Wow.
At the time, Harvey was conducting his
Ouch.
his not so kosher business. I was working with him and for him, but thank God nothing ever happened to me. But I was working in the movie making business, and the reason why it's interesting is because I was so passionate about it and so committed to it. And once I was in it, my eyes were opened, and not in a good way. And I'll tell you this story that really changed the trajectory of my life. And it was one evening late when I was working in the Miramax offices. I was working in the marketing production offices, and it was about 10 p.m. And I was one of the few people left in the office, and aside from these two high-level executives whose offices were on the outskirts of the room. And the two executives were a man and a woman. The man was slightly above the woman in terms of title, but they were both very successful, very high-level executives, both, famous in their own right in the production world. And I remember sitting, in my little cubicle. I was still, in my early 20s. I was still young and getting into the business. I remember overhearing the male knocking on the female executive's door and banging and screaming and cursing at her, and then her opening the door and screaming and cursing back at him, and the two of them going at it about some like work-related, media, film-related incident. Nothing of any serious nature. But they were so angry and so volatile and so disrespectful to each other. And I remember watching that and thinking, is that where I want to be? Am I working the next 25 years of my life to get there so that I could have 4 kids at home? Because I knew this executive had 4 little kids at home. Sure. This is 10 p.m. on like a Tuesday night. And I'm thinking, is that my goal, to go sacrifice the next 25 years of my life so that I could be at the office and at 10 o'clock at night when my 4 kids are home and be screamed at and disrespected by another executive? Is this really worth it? And I just thought to myself, if that's the goal, I don't know if this is really what I want to do. And I thought about it, and while there are some obviously very nice people in the industry as a whole has a tendency to allow bad behavior and make it an acceptable way of communicating. And it's just not in my nature to want to be communicated to that way or to want to communicate to others that way. And I just thought this might not be the path for me. Right. If that's the end game, this is really not what I want to spend my life doing. It just didn't make sense. And shortly after that, I left the industry and went a totally different way. And I'm glad I did, because I didn't want to become that person. And I do have friends that did stay in the industry, and now they are flying all over the world and making a tremendous amount of money and very powerful. But I do see that it does change your insides.
And for some reason, it took you from this to now Elite Method.
Yeah, I literally did a 180.
Talk to us about this journey.
Yeah, because I saw that what you choose to do with your life shapes you from the inside out. I really felt strongly that whatever it is I decide to do, I want it to be something that is life affirming and life changing for the better, and not something that's going to become a soul killer. So I knew from that point on, if I'm not going to buy into this movie making business stuff, then I'm going to do something that's really meaningful to me and better off for the world. So that's sort of how my husband and I ended up in this Elite Method business.
And is that what also brought you
my husband,
together?
as I was saying before, is a real character. He's one of the most passionate people ever, really. For good or for bad, he is 100% in on whatever it is he says and he's doing. And because of that, a lot of kids and a lot of people are very drawn to him because he's so authentic. And because of that, he became sort of like a role model in the community, partially because we live in a religious community, an Orthodox Jewish religious community, and a lot of people that are religious in our community don't look like my husband. He's sort of an outlier in that he's big, tall, very fit, takes tremendous care of his appearance, and yet at the same time, all those sort of vanity things aside, he is very dedicated to following the rules and the rituals and to living them in the best way possible in terms of kindness and charity and all those things. So people were always just sort of enamored by, wow, look at this guy. He's living the life truthfully, but he's also doing all the other things, taking care of himself, prioritizing himself and his health. So he became a role model in the community, and more and more people would come to him and say, hey, my teenage son is grappling with the boundaries between religious, behaviors and also being modern and part of modern society. And you seem to bridge that gap beautifully. Can you talk to my son and explain to him that he doesn't have to sacrifice one for the other? You can be religious and follow the rules that mean something to you and still at the same time be part of the modern world.
That's
and
right.
So my husband became a little bit of a role model in that sense. And not even just to teenagers, but even just the men in the community who were like, wow, there's no excuse not to be in good health. Look at you, you're fit. You don't make excuses. You still go to synagogue and you still get fit. Like, people often try to find excuses for their behaviors, and my husband is not like that at all. And
it's kind of like I said, it's hard to worship when you can't get on your knees,
Yes, exactly. Like my husband says, like, it's so true though. It's like, in order to be your best,
that's right.
Religiously, you need to be your best inside and outside.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And that's how he lives. And as more and more people became interested in speaking with him and being motivated and inspired by him, this idea for the business sort of came to fruition, and we decided that there are a lot of people in this community and in so many communities outside of here that really need a positive and inspiring word. And,
that's right. That's right.
We wanted to be part of that cause.
And it's so interesting to me because I'm hearing you, like, you were working in the entertainment business, not so much in the set, I'm assuming, right?
Not on the set, but behind the scenes.
It's still like you were creating. One thing about media and art is that it's trying to convey a message in a real cool kind of way in some regards.
Yes.
And look at what y'all doing with the Elite Method, you know?
Yes.
Like, it's cool to be like a big brother, a big sister for somebody, you know what I'm saying? In that regard.
Sometimes the shiniest object is not the most valuable.
That's right. That's right.
And that's kind of what I dropped when I dropped the filmmaking business. It's not about the shiny object, it's about the valued object on the inside. And that's what Elite Method is about. It's about finding what makes you tick and what makes you unique and special and what gifts you can bring to the world. And we help people and children figure out what that is and then bring that out.
That's right.
And my husband always jokes, there's no one on earth that can't benefit from our program, because there's no one that doesn't need motivation and inspiration.
And you know what I have to say, and I'm not only saying this because I have the honor of being a part of this, but nothing like this exists.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's just,
it
really.
is shocking.
It is shocking.
It's out there, but in boxes.
That's exactly right.
It's not in a full package.
That's right. And that's why we say, people are like, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, I combine 3 programs into one.
Right.
I combine the social, emotional skill building, the life coaching, the confidence building, that whole component, with the physical fitness and training, plus the sports skill development. So there are sports programs out there, there are personal training programs out there, and there are children's life coaches out there. But there's no other program that legitimately combines all 3 simultaneously, so that when you meet up with a child, you can sort of ascertain what percentage am I going to be focusing on which part of the program. And as the child goes through their journey, you're going to be paying attention to different things. At the beginning, it might just be about the social emotional.
That's
and as
right.
they get more confident, you might say, you know what? Now that you're feeling good on the inside, let's build you up on the outside. And you might start focusing more on the bodybuilding and the physical fitness part, and then the sports skills. Or you might have a kid who's sweet as pie and very social, but it's just so not proficient at sports that you really want to teach them the rules and how to be better, so that at recess they can participate with their friends. So you might focus on the sports and the physical fitness at first, and not even run into any social emotional stuff until they get a little older and new things come up.
That's right.
So the percentage of what you're focusing on at every session changes, and over their journey is going to change.
Right.
Elite Method Method believes that all children have something unique to bring to the world.
There's no such thing as one size fits all when it comes to children. Elite Method focuses on building confidence, self-esteem, social skills, building the entire child from head to toe. Sports is just a conduit on how to bring the best out of every child out there. We try to focus on making children comfortable with the uncomfortable. Every single child, they are wired differently. Once you're able to connect to them, that's when the magic starts.
What they really need a lot of is one-on-one guidance and mentorship. Elite Method has a staff of 25 coaches that are the heart and soul of our business.
We take every single precautionary measure to make sure that the child and that the parent feels safe.
Coach Walter really takes time and energy with every single session he has with Jackson. Jackson leaves more confident, and he really feels on top of the world. I couldn't ask for a better coach for my kid.
Now that's a workout and a half for you.
There's nothing more important in this world than giving a child self-worth.
Every kid deserves to feel great in their own skin. We make sure that every kid sees the magic in themselves, and if they don't, we make sure we bring it out in them.
We were talking off camera with this, and I want to know from you because we're both parents, and gosh, this is such an interesting time that we're living in, man. You talk about living in a huge shift. What's one common thing you've seen that parents been asking in regards to their child? Is there a common denominator that we're hearing,
Yes.
seeing here?
Yes, yes. The lack of self-worth and self-esteem is staggering. And it's no coincidence that has taken a major decline with the rapid descent of social media.
I talk a lot about that in my workshops, that it's not because I am a person of faith, right? I don't believe in coincidences. But at the same time, we're seeing a decline in that socialization, decline even in people going to churches and mosques and that kind of thing, or synagogues, the rise of social media. And the biggest battle is, where do we still continue to be, firm in our authenticity in the midst of a huge sort of, I really think a lot now that there was a moment that I really did appreciate, like the not knowing.
Right. It's
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So anyways,
we know too much.
Go ahead.
That's it. We know too much. There's too much on our minds. We're too aware. Kids today know about so much more than they should. And I'm a believer in kids should be knowledgeable and aware. But I'm talking about on a daily basis, they're exposed to so many sad stories and so much negativity in the world and so much confusion and bad news. And I feel like kids are emotionally overloaded before they're able to actually cope with a lot of the emotions that go with processing so much information.
That's right.
Mass murder here and famine here. And while I do believe that kids need to be taught these things, they need to be taught them sensitively and within context. But when it's just being spewed left and right without any context, kids feel the weight of their world on their shoulders. And they don't know how to manage that. And their coping skills just diminish because they become overweighted by knowledge. And so social media, and it's not just social media, it's the news. And adults are suffering from the same thing. I mean, we can't hide anymore. You open your phone and right away you find out about the last 10 shootings in the last hour. It's like, whoa, enough. Let me just breathe. So for children, it's really overwhelming. And then on top of that, the social media in and of itself becomes like a jealousy thing. It becomes a FOMO. What are my friends up to that I'm not invited to? And why are those girls so skinny? And why are those girls having such a good time? And why are those boys playing on a team that I couldn't get on? And it's this constant questioning of your self-worth and of your value and whether or not people actually like you, are my friends my real friends. It's so much. And my daughter, she's so bright. She says to me, Mom, I wish anything I could be a teenager in your time, when it was just pick up the phone and call, and you had no idea what your other friends were up to because they were all doing their own thing. And if you had one friend over, no one felt bad because no one really knew about it, and that friend was over another friend's house. So everyone was just busy and having a good time rather than questioning what everyone else was doing.
Yeah.
Kids don't know how to just be in the moment and just enjoy what they're doing. They're always wondering what everyone else is doing and are they having a better time than me. And that takes away so much joy from just being. And it makes me so sad for this generation. They're just lacking a sense of comfort of being in their own skin in the moment and being happy where they are, where they are, and not wondering what everyone else is doing.
Richard, what's the advice you would give to that young person right now who, as a mother, as someone who's so involved in the empowerment of young people? What's that advice you would give to that young person?
I think it's what I was mentioning to you before, and that's that kids need to own who they are.
Yeah.
And not be embarrassed by it and not hide it. Because what happens is that if you hide your weaknesses and your insecurities, people can weaponize them and use them against you. So for example, if you, whatever it is that you are a little embarrassed about, if you just own it and say, yeah, okay, I'm very sensitive, or yeah, okay, I'm so not an athlete, or I don't have talent in singing, but I love to sing. Rather than being embarrassed to be heard, just be like, I'm a terrible singer, but I love it. And own it, and then no one's gonna be able to make fun of you because you're like, I know I'm the worst singer, but I really don't care because I love it anyway.
Yeah.
The more you hide things from people, the more opportunity they have to use them against you.
And that's interesting because we're only seeing the surface, just speaking of social media, of what the best people have to offer.
Exactly.
Not understanding that the other layers and circumstances that are happening, that's much more deeper and existential that we don't even...
We're seeing just the tip of the iceberg, and we're judging ourselves based on that tip. And that's not fair. We're seeing, these amazing, young girls singing on social media. We're thinking, God, why can't I have a voice like that? But what you don't know is that they've been in training since 4 years old, sacrificing so much of their time in their life to get where they are, and putting themselves out there. Risk of failure that they're dealing with. Kids just they can't put in context other people's success. So they compare themselves to others, and not realizing the amount of work and sacrifice that goes into getting to the top of anything.
That's right.
So I think kids really need to just be able to just say, yeah, okay, I'm really good at these things. I'm not as good at these things, but I'm cool with that because everyone's good at some things and not good at others.
That's right.
And you can't make fun of me because I already know it.
That's
I already make fun of myself. I'm already cool with this. So no matter what you say to me, it doesn't penetrate.
That's right.
And if more kids just owned who they were and stopped trying to be something else, they would be much less harder to make fun of or to put down or to make feel less than.
That's right. And I asked the advice you would give to the young person as someone who is possibly following your footsteps and working in your path. What advice would you give to that young adult who's...
So, I think that everyone has to do a deep dive into who they are and what really, really inspires and motivates them. And from a young age, I've always known that giving of myself is what gets me high. That's what does it for me. That's what gets me up in the morning, and that's what lets me sleep at night. If I don't give on a daily basis and do something outside my comfort zone in terms of nurturing and loving and sharing, then I have not had a successful day.
I'm going to ask the same thing I asked your phenomenal husband. Where's this passion come from, Is it a person? Was it a quote? Was it a movie?
No. You know what it was for me? I grew up my mom is European, and she didn't come here until she was in her late teens. So I grew up in a European household. My grandparents were Holocaust survivors. And I grew up with them and all our extended family, all coming from Hungary and the Holocaust, all survivors. And I think just growing up with that sort of awareness from a very young age of the depth to which humanity can be depraved and to which humanity is capable of surviving and thriving despite that, it opened up my heart in a way that a lot of younger kids are not open to or exposed to. So I've always had a sense of the world and the bigger picture of how bad it can be, but how amazing it can be also. And it expanded my heart from a very, very young age. I've always just been very empathetic and sensitive to others' pain and suffering because I was exposed to it from such a young age. You know, my grandparents didn't talk about their experience, excuse me, but I would say I didn't need them to talk about it. I saw it on their faces, and I saw it in, you know, in the way that they lived their life, and that sensitivity from a very young age just stayed with me, and it's made me feel like my path in life is to try to heal the world. Like, I mean, I'm only one person, but I try to do my part, and I believe that if everybody in the world made it their daily goal to do something to leave the world a better place than the day before, we'd be so much better off. But people are so self-absorbed in their own stuff that no one really wants to see past their own little bubble. And I've just always been that person that looks way down the road and thinks, okay, what can I do? You know, people always, I live in, like I said, a religious Jewish community, and there's a lot of talk about the afterlife and God and belief and atheism and this and that. And you know, religion aside, my belief system is that if you can leave the world a better place than when you arrived, you have done your part for humanity. And that is the most religious and spiritual thing you can do. Is every human soul should leave the world a little bit better than when they got into it. And if everyone was moving in that forward motion, as opposed to staying still or stagnant or moving backwards, the world would be a better place, and it would be exponentially getting better. So that's where my passion comes from. It's like, I'm going to do my share. I can't make you do yours, but I'm going to try really hard to inspire and motivate you to do yours. And everyone brings something different to the table. For me, it's a sense of awareness and empathy and giving, but other people have other talents to give. It doesn't have to be that. But everyone needs to figure out what is it that they can give and focus on that, because giving is the most amazing gift you can give yourself. When it's done graciously and authentically, there is no better feeling in the world. And a lot of people just haven't tried it. But I promise if they try it, it becomes addictive.
And you know what's crazy is because, you know, I told Mike this, but when I was doing my post-grad research, I took Kabbalah for like 2 years. And one thing I never forget that this individual said, that every time you give, you get a new soul. You get a new soul, man. That's such a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
It's like you become transformed, renewed. I'm getting a little emotional because I remember the people that touched me. And I try to do the same thing, because for me, there's no better high, as you said. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just something that you can go to sleep comfortably. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of uncomfortability happening with all that stimuli that we're talking about. But if that one thing can dominate all that stimuli that's so negative, that's so peaceful for your soul.
Absolutely. You know? It negates. It negates so much negative stuff on a daily basis. And you know you're giving. And you know, my husband's father unfortunately passed away just a few weeks ago. And
rest in peace, yes.
There's been a lot of talk in my family about what happens once you're gone. And
eschatology, they call it.
And there's been a lot of, you know, disagreement amongst family and friends about what happens. And of course, because there's a million different perspectives on that, and that's fine. But my personal perspective is, you know, it's not so much about where you go. It's more about what you leave behind. To me, the legacy you leave to those behind is the afterlife. To me. So like whether there's heaven or hell or soul or reincarnation, it's what you leave for those left behind, the memories, the positive attributes, the good things that you leave behind. That is the afterlife. Because we're the ones who are taking all that information and all that beauty and we're living with it. So if you can leave a great legacy, it doesn't have to be money or anything fancy, just goodness, goodwill, positivity, authenticity. You have gone 100% wholeheartedly, and you've left something that's invaluable. So I would say, you know, don't worry about what you leave behind. Leave behind goodness. It costs nothing. Leave behind humanity. Leave behind a better place than you came in, and you've left an incredible legacy. Where you go, we don't know. Right. We can't control that. We can only control the goodness that we leave behind. That's within our control.
And the congregation says, "A woman." I don't know if you ever seen the movie Coco.
No, my daughter was actually asking me to see that with her.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in the movie Coco, you know, this is being filmed, Halloween is coming up, right? But by the time it comes out, it'll be later, past that date. But it's about the Dia de los Muertos, which is a very Mesoamerican
Yes.
kind of celebration, if you will, where we celebrate the dead.
Okay.
And in Coco, the way the spirit in the afterlife remained alive was by the memory of the people that are living. If you forget that person no longer exists,
Right.
even in the afterlife.
Wow.
So it's really deep. I didn't mean to give it away for
Wow,
you,
that's
but
a beautiful
it's a
premise.
beautiful thing. So that shows that there is no distinction. There is no dichotomy between the life here and after. That they're actually in unison. That they're in
And they're
juxtaposition
connected
to each other.
And one is incumbent upon the other.
Exactly. As we always do in the Know Thyself podcast, we invite people to share something from their shelves. What you got for us, Rachel?
So I thought long and hard about this because I had a couple different ideas, but the one that kept coming back to me was my grandfather, belonged to my grandfather. It's his, it's his kippah, his yarmulke, and his machzor, which is the religious prayer book that you use on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year.
Oh, that's right.
And if you look on the front page, it just says his name in Hebrew. It says Yosef Eckstein, which was his name. It says it in Hebrew. And for some reason, just the fact that it's written there and this belonged to him, it's, after he passed, I was allowed to go into his apartment and take whatever was there. And then right away, my eyes went to this because these were the most important items to him: his yarmulke and his prayer books. For him to have survived such atrocity and to have continued his faith regardless, even after the Holocaust, to me as a young child was always so hard to comprehend that he faced the worst atrocities of the world, and yet his faith in God never ceased. And that this is post the war. This is when he gets back to America. Not gets back to, but leaves Hungary, and comes to America eventually. And these belong to him in America, the land of the free. And the fact that he was able to go back to his religion and live freely, even with the memories of what happened to him, I always marveled at that, at the ability of the human mind to continue and to see goodness in the world despite the awareness that the world is not all good.
Right.
And I found that to be extremely impressive because our coping skills today as a people are very limited. For the most part, we obviously have had wars in the last 20, 30 years, but the military were the ones who unfortunately got the brunt of the reality of that.
Right.
As Americans, we were pretty much safe here on our land. The last few decades, Americans have not had to deal with being part of a war on a day-to-day basis, unlike in World War I, World War II.
That's
where,
right. Yeah.
The Americans felt the brunt of the wars. And because of that, we've been living these lives of just free of major atrocities. And because of that, we've become spoiled a little bit, and our coping skills for real terror have diminished. On the one hand, thank God, the last thing we want is that. But on the other hand, we're not remembering the true level of what the human soul and spirit can endure, despite real horrors in the world. I mean, like what my grandfather lived through, and to have survived and to have gone on and to raise a family and to live a good life, that's incredible. And it wasn't just my grandfather, it was millions of families that went on, despite horrors, went on and created these families and believed and led good lives. And meanwhile, we all break down when our car is in the shop for a week. We're like, what am I gonna do?
Right. First world problems.
We just haven't, haven't been exposed to the realities of facing life and death on a daily basis. And while that's wonderful in some senses, it's also diminished our character a little bit. It hasn't allowed us to live our lives to the fullest extent and to really dig deep in our souls to see what we're truly capable of.
That's right.
A lot of us are sort of floating on the surface of effort,
Right.
because things are coming sort of easily to us.
That's right.
Whereas back in the day, you had no choice. You got to give 110% of yourself to survive.
That's right.
And now there's a lot of stuff that allows us to sort of just give 50% and get by.
Yeah.
Back in wartime, you couldn't give 50% and get by.
That's
You
right.
were living by the skin of your teeth.
That's right.
And the kind of people that came out of those times were soulful and 100% involved because they had no choice. And I feel like it's a little bit of a detriment to us in these times that we're not being pushed to our brink.
That's
because
right.
we're not seeing what we're truly made of.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if COVID did that for us a little bit. You think it gave us a little
I think-
social nudge?
I think it did a little bit. I think that it probably did a lot more in maybe in other countries, but I think in America, the people who were already privileged stayed for the most part fairly privileged.
Yeah.
And again, not to take away, from their success and their joy, but in New York City, a lot of people just ran to their Hamptons house.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
thank God for those people who had that option, but in other countries, there were no Hamptons
Yeah,
houses.
that's right.
People were really, really
Right.
stuck alone. So it really depends on the amount of privilege you had going into COVID. It reflects how much suffering you had to endure.
That's right.
Some people had it really, really bad. So I don't even want to pretend that COVID here, really like put us through the ringer. There have been much worse life events, I think, than COVID. I mean, of course, for the elderly who were
Yeah.
really alone, they suffered terribly. The sick suffered terribly because they couldn't be around anyone. You know who else suffered terribly? Kids in hospitals.
Yeah. Speak on it. Yeah.
Because they
that's
could
right.
not go anywhere, be around anyone. They
Yeah.
needed parental visits. Those kids suffered a lot.
Yeah.
But as regular everyday citizens, yes. Did we have to work from our houses? Did we have to not hang out and get together with our friends? Yes. But in the big scheme of things, there has been a lot more suffering from other groups than the average American.
Yeah, I definitely concur. Just
Yeah.
because even the backlog of surgeries and things
Yeah.
that I was hearing, because COVID was put in the forefront, but people with other long-term health concerns and stuff were put
Yeah,
in
there
a
were definitely
backlog.
groups that suffered terribly.
Yeah,
And what's interesting is that I think that now that the whole COVID phase is a little bit over, now we're in the vaccination phase.
Right.
I think that it's very interesting, the human psychology, because when it was COVID time, we were all first responders thanking. We're all in this together, we're all united. And now that it's come time for vaccinations and sensitivities to others who maybe are immunocompromised.
That's right.
Now everyone started taking a step back and saying, well, how does this affect me? And what is my responsibility as a citizen to the greater good?
Right.
Am I looking out for myself, or am I looking out for the larger community? And I'm not saying there's right or wrong. What I'm saying is that it's a time of self-reflection
Yeah.
as a society. What is the cost we're willing to pay for the greater good of the people, as
Right.
opposed to our own convenience
Right.
and our own personal beliefs?
That's right.
So we're coming to a head here as a society and trying to determine where our comfort zone is. Are we willing to give up some of our personal liberties for the greater good? Or are we putting our foot down and saying, every man for himself, and that's the way life, capitalism succeeds? There's
I
definitely
agree.
arguments
Yeah.
on both sides.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking a side on this, but it's definitely creating a bigger question mark
Yeah.
on these times.
Rachel, if people were to try to find you and your services, Elite Method, how can people find you and contact and reach out for your services?
Well, theelitemethod.com is our website, and we have all our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. But most importantly, if you're in a location where we don't have service providers, but you do have a child who you think really needs a big brother, a mentor, someone to look out for them, we're not the only program in the world that can offer that kind of service. There's Big Brother,
That's right.
Big Sister programs all over America. There are other opportunities to find an advocate and a mentor and a friend for your child. You just have to do a little bit of research online, and I'm always happy to help. If someone calls me and says, you don't have any coaches by me, but my kid really needs something, I will go out of my way and help you find that service that's affordable for you and works for your family. We work in the New York, New Jersey area. We're fairly limited, but it's important if you see your child really needs something outside of the box and you're not able to provide that, don't hesitate to go and find someone for your child, whether it's a pastor or a teacher, a coach, whatever it is. Kids need that outside of the parent advocacy.
Yes.
Because for so many kids, the parent-child relationship is tenuous, and when you put too much pressure on that relationship, it can break. Sometimes you need that outside person to sort of smooth things over.
Yeah.
And that's what we offer, and there are people all over America that can offer that service.
Yeah, and like the vaccine talk, we talk about prevention and thinking about others. Parent or guardian, be that vaccine, so to speak, for your child. Be preventative, before it gets worse. If you see those signs, we talk about that. You are the coach, you are the teacher, you are the pastor, you are all these things for this child for right now. So don't hesitate and look for people like Rachel to help support you
and
if you need
people like
be.
Walter, who's one of the most phenomenal coaches ever. Honestly,
we're here. Thank you.
We've been working with you for years and since the beginning, and just to know you're on our team is such a boon for us. What you bring to the table is extraordinary.
Yeah.
If you didn't have 15,000 other things going on,
I know. I was just talking that with somebody.
Clients.
I'm a Guatemalan Jamaican and I have 8 different gigs going on.
You are just the most ambitious human on the planet. You were involved in so many things, but all of them are such good things that I don't hold any grudge. I mean, everything you do is good for the world.
Great.
So thank God for that. But we need more people like you on the planet, Walter.
And Rachel, and this is, as Nori says in the Drink Champs, another podcast, he talks about giving flowers to people while they're still alive. And I want to give you your flowers.
Thank you.
Your roses, your daisies, your dandelions, because you're a phenomenal mother, businesswoman, and more importantly, child of God, man. And I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you.
As
Feel
we,
the same way about you.
Yeah. As we always do, we end with a quote. And this one comes to us from Zig Ziglar.
Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, and it reads as such. If you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you.
I love it.
Peace, family.
I like what I like. You know what I'm saying? Right there, that sound right. Slight work for the right work to her. Check. Yeah.